So first of all, for those of you who are joining us who are interested in what's happening on the incentive front in Minnesota, um, we have our tax credit bill working its way through the process. We had a fantastic hearing in the House of Representatives before the tax committee. Um, we do not have a hearing scheduled in the Senate Tax Committee, but that's okay as long as we get into the House Omnibus Tax Bill. So that's our goal. The legislature's on break this week. So when they get back on Tuesday, the House is starting to put together their omnibus bill. The Senate will be doing the same. We want to end up ideally in both of those bills, but certainly we have to be in one of those bills, the House bill, in order to be uh, on the table in conference committee when the two sides, the House and the Senate, come together to finalize the omnibus tax bill. So if you want to follow what we're doing, sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social media, make sure that you keep a watch in the next week because we will have some updates and announcements on that. I have one other announcement that I want to make, and it's something that I'm so excited about. About 6 weeks ago, Ava DuVernay's company, Array, launched Array Crew, which is a new platform with a mission to support below the line film and television professionals from underrepresented populations. It's basically a crew database. It is funded by and searchable by all of the major studios and streaming services. When it launched, it was only available for crew in the major production hubs in the US, LA, New York, Atlanta, etc. And I have been emailing and stalking and, after the Array team since before it launched, about including Minnesota, even to the point of this week having a Zoom with film commissioners from around the world where Ava and the Array team were there. And I was like, what about Minnesota? So as of last night, I can proudly announce that crew, below the line crew in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth, and Rochester can now sign up for Array Crew. And this is fantastic. Because this has all just happened, we don't have the links up yet on our website, but we will get those up today and get all of the information out on social media. What the Array team says for a lot of state film commissions and regional film commissions already have their own crew databases. This is not to supplant that or take the place of it. This is in addition to. So you should still get yourself a listing in our production guide or in the Duluth production guide, or but also sign up for Array Crew. Because after making so much noise about Minnesota, we need to have Minnesota represented. So now let's move on to the reason we're all here. We have just such a great conversation today. I want to welcome our panelists, and we have an additional panelist today. But first, Alan Seiffert has served as executive director at Paisley Park since October of 2019. He is an experienced entertainment executive, live event producer, and brand builder. Since starting at Paisley Park, Alan has revamped the visitor experience and helped to re-envision live events. Prior to Paisley Park, Alan was president of Midnight Blue Management, focusing on live events, including Black Girls Rock Festival and other music events. He has also served in senior positions at BET Viacom, NBC Universal, the NBA, and Fox Television.
Ah,
And
oh my gosh.
oh my gosh, you're
I am really old. Go on. Sorry.
so Alan is going to talk to us about where things stand with Paisley Park currently and what his plans are for the future. But I'm thrilled that we're also joined by Christine Oneski. Christine was the last official soundstage manager at Paisley Park who opened up the soundstage for public rental. Christine's now a producer for Yellow Tag at Best Buy. And I thought we would start by, not to put you on the spot, Christine, but we'll
No
start with
problem.
you. Since
Sure.
if you could just give folks a brief overview of how this started, what the soundstage was created for, and what it was used for initially.
Yeah. Well, Prince built Paisley Park back in the late 80s. And at that time, he was with Warner Brothers, and it was a way for him to have his own creative place because he was pumping out so much music at one time that Paisley's kind of built into two different sides. One's like was the recording studio side and the other being the soundstage. And for those that have never been to Paisley, one, it's a remarkable, just remarkable place. The soundstage is a full-on soundstage like you would see in LA, New York, Chicago. It's huge, it's big, it's got catwalks in it, full-on power backstage, all of that. During my time, which was 2004 through 2006, and that seems so long ago, but yet it seems like yesterday in my head. The place had been closed for 10 years to the public. Prince was primarily using it just for his own purpose. And he was out on tour for the musicology tour. And I heard wind that I'd kept touch with people since day one out there, production wise. I was living in LA at the time, and they had contacted me on and off about opening the stage back up. I had moved here to Minnesota, and I had heard that they were working on revamping it. So I went down and met with them, and they were working on all of the recording studios. I asked about the soundstage, and they said yes, they had been talking to the film and TV board. And I said, do you know anything about running a soundstage? And they're like, no, we don't. And that's where I came in. And I said, I just moved from LA here to Minnesota. And so I came in and did a bunch of work because it was kind of not up to the par that it needed to be at the time to rent out. So put in all the black new curtains, blue, purple feathers and gold glitter out of the perms, put in a production office and did a whole bunch of stuff. And then we had a huge party, a grand opening for about 550 people where I worked with the film and TV board on that list. And we had musical acts, so you could take tours, and we had food. And then since then it was open, and I had a bunch of different clients that came in, mostly commercials. A lot of commercials, from Breyer's Ice Cream to Best Buy, to Tractor Supply, Galaxy, Golf Galaxy, some musical acts that came through. And then Prince came home one winter, and when he came home in the winter, it was kind of like, yeah, because he was usually in LA. He came home and kind of closed, just said, don't book stuff for a while, and that kind of lingered on. And then that was kind of the end of that. And he made it his residence once again.
Great. Well, thank you for that background. That is really helpful. And for everyone, for all of our attendees, please do ask questions. And I would ask you to please put them in the Q&A and not in the chat. Jill's going to be monitoring that, and we will bring all of your questions to the panelists as we move forward. But now I want to turn to Alan. So Alan, can you talk a little bit about, first of all, talk a little bit about yourself. How did you end up here at Paisley Park, and what has that transition been like for you?
Sure. Well, first of all, Christine, that information is really helpful. It actually answered a couple of questions that I think all of us have had. So we definitely have to have you back, so we can pick your brain further. I think we found some confetti on the grid, and we were not sure where it came from, but I think you might have just answered that. So it's a pleasure to kind of hear that. So as you said, my background is in kind of traditional media, and I've done a lot of live events, festivals, concerts. Kind of this backstory, after Prince passed away 5 years ago, the family, worked with Graceland, who really did an excellent job taking what had been Prince's vision and kind of his starting to turn Paisley Park into a public place. And they really brought it to a life. And then in 2019, I think that the family decided let's all put it under one big, both one big umbrella, and that's when they decided to let's just really kind of figure out how we can bring the entire building back to life. So they brought me on, again, based on my background, having done some traditional media festivals. When they approached me, it was, we think that Paisley Park should be what Prince wanted, which was a creative sanctuary. I think Christine put it perfectly. It was a place that he could do this amazing work, but he also wanted to make it available to others. He wanted to make it available to guests. He wanted to make it available to local production. He wanted to make it available to his friends and to new artists who could come there, record, perform. So I grabbed the opportunity because it's a very unique one. We are a museum, but we're also a concert venue. We are a production space, and there's such a rich history and legacy. So I came in, and we've really been kind of rebuilding our team, and our goal now is to, as I said, continue what Prince wanted. This is very much for us about bringing the building to life, which I think we've done a great job with. So our focus is, obviously we have an amazing museum experience where you can kind of see the legacy, the artifacts. You can kind of get more experience with Prince's work, learn more about him, and because he had started that process of creating a museum before he passed, you walk in and you really do see what he intended. The other parts of Paisley Park for us is focusing on those kind of other areas, and I think Christine put it well. There's the recording side and there's the kind of soundstage side. The way that we think about it is there's the museum space, there is the soundstage production side, and then there's the music side. What we've been doing is really trying to enhance and bolster all of that. Prince was very, I think Christine put it well. There's a time when he ended up coming back where, he just wanted to have it as his own space. It was almost too much activity. We're now at a place where we want more people there. We want to be able to bring it available to local production companies, to local artists. So that's been our primary focus. I think Christine put it well. If you've not been to Paisley, you really don't, it's hard to even kind of contemplate, but it is a 12,500 square foot soundstage. There is an adjacent stage next to it, which was a loading dock that Prince turned into a smaller club vibe. We have 3 studios. We have, state of the art. It's analog, it's Pro Tools. But we also have a pretty amazing event space. And Christine reminded me, Melody, that we really do have to talk soon about, really once COVID is in a better place, is really kind of hosting everyone. Come out. We will have Christine manage the party because she knows how to do it. But I do think seeing it is so key for us. So that's how I came out here. We're excited about it because we think there's a great there's a great opportunity to bring production in a meaningful way back. I mean, just think about it. There is no other real soundstage until I think you hit Denver or Chicago. We have great crews here. We've got, I mean, amazing talent. We need to have more of it here. Melody, I'm also really pleased. I know we talked about it last year, but I think that the production incentive will be huge here, because people, you know, why are they going up to Calgary, Winnipeg? Why are they going up to BC? They should be here. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I think that Minnesota has so much to offer the industry, and the availability of Paisley Park is just another jewel in the Minnesota crown. Um, yes, I was gonna bring up the party, because we had talked about that pre-pandemic. It's like, when are we going to do an event for the industry? So we will absolutely, once it is safe to do so, get moving on that. One thing I'm curious about, Alan, is how are you going to balance the dual nature of kind of what Paisley now is, which is a working production facility, but it's also a public space, you know, with tours and event rentals. So how are you going to kind of straddle those two goals?
It's not that much of a challenge, actually, because again, from my experience, having been at NBC Universal, um, you know, it is a working production space. And so when people come to tour, it's not just a museum where they're looking at the great artifacts, but they walk into the soundstage. And what we explain to them is this is a working space. So we talk about the concerts that have been there. We talk about the television productions, the commercials, the films. So the way that we approach it is that if it's a tour, we let people know this is a working building. So we may have to change the tour slightly because there's a closed set, but most of the time when we've had rehearsals, recordings, most of the artists and the companies have been very open to having the tours come through there. I mean, not at critical moments, but we make clear that this is, yes, it's a museum, but it is a working production space. It's about creating art. If we can show you some of that while it's in production, that's great. And the example I'm thinking of is we had an amazing artist in last fall. We did a kind of COVID-friendly concert with a young artist named Omar Apollo. And what we did there was we still had tours going through. We kept it separate from him in Studio A, but he ended up loving it. So he'd be in the middle of a song and he'd wave. I mean, and I think that is just a much more rich experience. So yes, there will be some challenges sometimes, but we just try to make it clear to our guests, this is a working space. If you go through the Warner Brothers lot, you go through Universal. I mean, I don't want to make that analogy all the way, but that's what makes it cool. It's like, this is something that just happens here. And I think that's a great story for Minnesota too. It's like, this is a working space. So we look forward to it. We look forward to having production there and where it makes sense, you know, in a safe way. Tours, the people who are on tour love it. I'm thinking about before COVID, we did a concert and the crowd was coming through and we couldn't get them to leave the soundstage because the band was doing sound check. And they just wanted to stay, and because it was live music in that building. So to the extent that we can make it work, you know, that's kind of our goal.
Great, great. Well, I know so much is dependent on COVID and vaccinations and schedules and, you know, kind of when safety issues. But what is your timeline on production? Are you hoping to get film production in the soundstage this summer, this fall? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, we, as most of the state did, we ended up having to shut down last year. We did reopen, and we did have some, as I said, some kind of socially distanced production and concerts, and then we had to shut down again. We are open, and we definitely are open to production, to rentals. You know, we've been talking to a number of groups. Our approach is no different than the rest of the production industry, is that, you know, our protocols have changed. We are obviously very safe. We end up having extra team on board, whether it's EMS or a COVID protocol person, but, you know, but we've adopted the same protocols that the rest of the industry is. So I'd say we are open for business now. The challenge is just is finding space. We're doing well, so that's a good problem to have. I would say that from our from our perspective, in some ways, keeping up with the COVID protocols are in some ways easier, because it's a very confined space. Confined in terms of just, you don't have to go across the lot. You don't have to go, you know, we've got the production offices, we've got the dressing rooms, we've got the sound stage, we've got the green room. It's all, you know, in the same facility. You all may not know, but our sound stage can hold 3 semis plus a talent van. I mean, it is built for this, as Christine knows best. So we are lucky in that sense. And so when we've had productions in, when we've had concerts in, you know, they're just really pleased. Like, they don't have to, a couple things I've heard recently, they don't have to worry about traveling the crew or anyone else 5 different places. And they don't have to, unlike other places, they don't have to worry about stopping production because there's a plane flying. You know, we are really lucky. So, you know, we're at the point now, you know, me and my team, we're definitely open to, you know, figuring out a way for us to enhance production and to bring it there.
Great. And if folks want to get more information or want to contact someone about use of the space, can they find that on your website?
Yes, definitely. They can go to the sales at Paisley Park, or I haven't checked it the last couple of days, but we should also be in your directory.
Okay, great. Our production directory.
Absolutely.
So I think there are probably a lot of questions stacking up. Jill, do you want to unmute yourself and give us some of those?
Sure, we have a lot of questions. Actually, some of them coming from as far away as Denmark. So there's a lot of questions, Alan. I'm going to try and lump a bunch of these together. So just give me 1 second. You already addressed about museum versus production space, so we're good there. Our friend in Denmark says that online events could be a thing for you. Would you consider that?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I just want to say, and are there plans for expansion for the egg building next door to the studios, or expanding Paisley in general? And then also any plans for a Paisley hotel, because a lot of overseas visitors would like to come and perhaps have functions such as weddings and things like that.
Those are great questions. I'm laughing about the egg because I would say it's probably the #1 question that I get when people come to the space. So you'll to answer the egg question, you'll just have to come visit the space. But so in all seriousness, we are looking at different opportunities to expand. Expand can mean physically, you know, like space, or real estate. It can also mean just in terms of, you know, projects and scope. So we don't have a current plan to convert the egg into a production space or into a hotel. I know that has been a pretty common question. But no, we don't have those plans right now. And I'm sorry, I forgot the first part of that.
I was on mute. the first part of that. Now I have to scroll back through.
Oh, so
Well, one of the things that I just want to point out here is that so much of the industry in Minnesota hinges on what happens with this tax credit incentive.
Yeah.
Because if you look at what has happened in other states that have passed tax credits, the industry comes to the state and is followed by private investment. So I think once we have the tax credit and Paisley Park gets up to speed on becoming a production facility again, you're going to see a lot of interested private investors looking at areas to capitalize on that,
Exactly.
hotels, restaurants, other
Exactly.
facilities nearby.
Yeah, and what I'd say is, we have great relationships with the hotels in our area, with those downtown. When we book towns, I haven't really talked about kind of our programming side. We are, we use a kind of white glove treatment. So we have great relationships, and when our talent come in there, we make sure that they're treated as talent. And so when productions come in, like we have, based on COVID, we have a large show coming in to rehearse in the Soundstage, because it's the only space that they can actually put their entire rig in, and then go on a kind of lengthy U.S. concert tour. We're putting them up through our relationships with a top-notch brand. And we, that's something that we do. I do think that the investment will continue. I'd also say, Melody, that and I think when people see it, we can do almost any kind of production. The almost is because I'm not sure that we could quickly or easily put in a pool and in a kind of typical LA soundstage. But with that exception, in all seriousness, I mean, it is a very nimble facility. And so, whether it's power, whether it's access, security, dressing rooms, I mean, all of it, it's a pretty great space. And I think once our colleagues kind of visit it, I think that it'll be part of the overall conversation. To your point, we really haven't, Paisley Park with Prince's passing, it hasn't been the primary focus, but it is now.
Yeah. Well, and I just have to say, on the pool front, who needs a pool when you have Lake Minnetonka so
Exactly.
close?
I can say something about a pool,
Oh
Alan.
no! Oh no!
Never done a pool, but I have done a volleyball whole sand net, and I also did basketball with Kevin Garnett from the Timberwolves at the time, and we dumped Gatorade on top of him. All done at Paisley Park.
Okay.
It's in a magazine. I have that magazine somewhere that I can
I
find.
love that. I love that. Great.
Jill, do we have some other questions?
We do. Alan, do you want to talk about revenue for Paisley Park, as in how will the profits work for both the estate and keeping Paisley active through the future?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the question is really getting at. We do what we can to support the overall Prince estate. All of us on this call, all of us who work at Paisley, we all want my kids' to be able to enjoy Paisley Park, to learn about and enjoy Prince's legacy, his music, his art. But we also want to be a place that creates new art and new music. And so we invest everything in keeping that vision that Prince had alive. So I'm not quite sure what the question's getting at, other than, we are focused on reinvesting and making sure that this facility is here for a very, very long time. And to the extent, as Prince would, to the extent that we can also kind of help bolster and be supportive as part of our overall production industry, that's also key to us.
Great.
I should add one thing too, which probably we're saying, and when our team came in, we spent a lot of time kind of talking to and working with some of our colleagues on the music side. I mean, obviously, the Twin Cities are just world class in terms of music, and one of the things that we made a point to do is to build relationships with the First Avenues and the Live Nations. And kind of our approach is that we're not competitive; we're all additive, right? So I'm thrilled that there's more music coming back soon, I hope, at First Avenue, and they are of us. We look at production the same way, whether it's a feature or a photo shoot or a concert. We want to be additive, and so I don't look at if someone goes to a different facility, I'm still happy about that because it's staying local, it's staying here. And I think from our point of view, we just want to be additive. We're just another option. We may or may not be more expensive. We may or not be the right fit. But if it's not right this time for Paisley Park, it will be next time. And if you're supporting the other studio, if you're supporting another place, that's great for us still too. So that's kind of how we end up viewing it. This is something that we're trying to do. And I think Prince would have absolutely done this, just to be supportive of creating art, film, music. And so, whatever we can do to kind of keep that going is key for us.
Great. Jill?
These bounce around a little bit. Have you thought about any kind of music education at Paisley Park?
Absolutely. We've got some things in the works. My marketing person said, don't announce anything. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, yes, we have, I mean, COVID has really, for all of us in this industry, has been really tough. We are in a great position because we've been able to reopen and be able to get guests in there in a very safe way. You may or may not know, but when we reopened, we actually had a mask mandate in place before the state did. So we are really thoughtful and careful. We want to make sure that our teams are safe, that our guests are. So we've not been able to put into place a lot of the things that we had really hoped to, but we're the building blocks are there, and because education, music education in particular, is so important to Prince and so important to all of us, we do have some things in the works.
Great. I have two questions here that are completely unrelated. So here's one about diversity and inclusion. Do you anticipate a sliding scale for smaller and lower budget productions? Things like music videos that are done locally?
Yes, I think that our goal is we want to be accessible as a facility to the big studio picture and the local independent filmmaker. It's just going to depend on the project. So that's one of the reasons that you won't see a rate card published, because I think that we want to curate it. That doesn't mean that we can take every local production, because obviously, as I said, we need to invest in and continue to operate. I mean, turning the lights on a 12,500 square foot facility in a larger 65,000 square foot, we still have to, cover costs. But it is important for us to be creative and figure out how we can be supportive. Because again, this is, a lot of us come from prior media experience, that local filmmaker who we can cut a break for and be supportive of is going to come back in a big film, and they're going to bring more work home. So, and it's something that we just think is key. The other thing I'd say is that I haven't talked about it. One of the things that Prince wanted to do was to continue to bring in fresh voices. So as you know, he was, very, very keen on bringing in some amazing artists, young, not in terms of age, but in terms of maybe you haven't heard them yet. So we've really tried to, on the music side, to keep that going. We end up finding some artists who are just breaking, are people you may not have heard of, but continue to kind of bring in these new artists and expose them. We did the same thing with film and TV. We still want to provide that opportunity to let someone shoot at Paisley because we think they're an amazing artist. Maybe they, maybe their budget can't support our typical rates, but we think it's the right thing. So, so we're definitely open to being creative based on the actual filmmaker or um, the um, the production entity that's coming to us. One thing I didn't mention also, Jill, because I don't think I really addressed it, is we are open, just going back a moment, we are open to lots of events. I think that it is such a great space because we're really dealing with a big black box. So we can create dinners and, parties, intimate moments. So, there's been a lot of requests about weddings, and it's something that we talk a lot about. Um, so I think we'll have more to say on that later, but we are definitely open and interested. And that would be a black cat. Now, does that mean anything, Melody?
This is, my coworker has some boundary issues. Sorry.
Okay.
Ellen, I'm glad you mentioned events. Our friends at at MSPIF, the International Film Festival, are interested in possibly an outdoor space at
Great.
Paisley for an event later this year. So you should connect later.
Definitely. And yeah, and also I don't know when people have been there last, but in the last year, we spent a lot of time just kind of frankly upgrading the entire space. So, what used to be a studio parking lot, we've turned into an outdoor patio. We've been working closely with the city to get permits to do outdoor festivals. And so it is such a great property that we absolutely will be keen on doing more of those. So again, please feel free to reach out to me via the sales email address.
Great. Another question, where'd it go? Would you consider doing a webinar for fans or run a system where DJs and artists could apply to do a show or art exhibition at Paisley?
Yes, we're definitely open to ideas like that. Yes, I think it's the devil's in the details, but to the extent that we can bring in fan voices, that's important to us. To the extent that we can bring in different perspectives that kind of share and celebrate Prince's legacy, absolutely. We do have an event which I'm not going to announce now that will give fans a chance to kind of express their perspective and be inspired by Prince, and kind of do it in a very, very public way. So we really do like more and more of those. And again, apologies, I know we're bouncing around. I do want to address live events and streaming. A lot of you know that Prince really did break ground in terms of doing streaming events. So that is part of our mix and part of what we end up looking at. We made a decision during COVID, as people who've been following us know, that we didn't want to do, and not there's anything wrong with it, but when we all had to shut down, there was this kind of plethora of really great artists sitting in front of a DJ rig and doing this, which was cool. But we felt that we wanted to do something a little bit different. So we're pretty selective as to what we do in terms of streaming. But we do include streaming in our overall plan. The challenge from a live event perspective with Paisley Park is, it can hold about 1,000 people if we're inside. But some of the artists that we have are world-class, and we want to be able to share that. So number one is we are built for streaming. Number two is that we want to think about creative ways that we can move the needle for music and other projects that we can then bring out via digital. So just wanted to at least address that. I mean, I'm hoping for a lot of your production people that the big takeaway here is, at Paisley Park, we we get it. We are all creative focused, and we're about production. We're going to work really hard with you to see if there's a way that makes sense. What we don't want to do, and we never do, is to force it if it doesn't just organically fit. But I think you'll find us, as frankly everyone in this business has to be. We are creative, and we're very focused on like solving problems, because we want the shows to be made. We want the content to be created. So to the extent that we can work with you, we're really open to doing it.
Any thoughts to possibly recreate something similar to the MPG Music Club?
Why would we recreate the MPG Music Club when we have the MPG Music Club? I ask, dear listener. We have the MPG Music Club, and one thing that you'll see when you come back is, yes, we are. We have made some quiet efforts to start doing more and more with the club. Now, I'm talking about the kind of physical space, the physical property. When you come to Paisley Park, what you'll see is there's a terrific new addition. We've expanded the cafe. We have an outdoor space in which we plan on doing outdoor events. You know, could you imagine having, you know, something on the outdoor patio in this beautiful summer? Socially distanced, with a amazing menu. So the answer is yes. We had plans before COVID, and those plans are there. I think that what you'll see, I hope a year from now, is you'll see the building alive. I mean, the best experience for us would be, you know, throughout the year, the outdoors area to be activated and people enjoying it. People taking pictures in front of the beautiful, you know, love symbol. You're hearing some amazing artists sing jazz out on the patio. You go on a spectacular tour, which I haven't even talked about yet. We've made a ton of changes just to kind of bring home the power of kind of Prince's legacy. And then over in the soundstage, there is this new feature film being shot like that. Now, of course, I will have even more gray hair by then, but that is what I think Prince wanted. I think that it's really about, you know, keeping it alive, because just think about it. Just think about all the artistry and the creativity in this state. I mean, you know, we should be one of the pieces of that overall kind of, you know, production creativity. And so that to me would be the best, to have all of those things going on all cylinders.
That was a beautiful answer, Alan. And now there's a clarification to that question.
No.
Talking about not the physical space, the MPG Music Club online subscription service.
But did I tell you about my answer about the physical space?
Yes, absolutely. 100% perfection.
Thank you so much. There are discussions, and I would say, yes, there are discussions. I don't have anything to announce now. But if you come to the physical space.
Fair enough. Do you have any plans to add rotating DJs beyond a Prince After Dark party? And if so, how can you be reached to discuss future bookings?
Yes, our goal is to bring in people who are authentic to Prince, meaning they played with Prince, they were his DJ, they, you know, just part of his world. But authentic to Prince also means people who are just amazing artists. So we have been in the last year just bringing in a lot of people when we've been able to have them. We are bringing back After Dark, so I can say that. It's all subject to kind of COVID protocols, but we do look forward to having people back. And I think what you'll see is there's a nice wide array of amazing artists. And some of these DJs have worked with Prince, some of them haven't. But what they have in common is that they very much appreciate the music of Prince, the influence of Prince. I think the After Dark. So for those who haven't gone, the After Dark is typically just an evening Prince party. Typically, after people have gone on a tour, it's in the beautifully aforementioned MPG Club. But the After Dark is just a chance for us just to kind of listen to Prince music and just feel it. And so we do plan to bring those back once the protocols lift, and we'll bring in lots of new artists. I think the best way is just to reach out to us via sales at Paisley Park.
Great. And kind of along those same lines, and also going back to streaming, would celebrations like that ever be possible to stream for our out of town, out of country fans, and more affordable for people who can't go in person?
Yes, yes. Since our new team came on, that has been a pretty frequent request. I mean, Prince's fan base is global, and although we would love for people to come to Paisley, and a lot of them do, sometimes it's just not as feasible. In particular during COVID. So yes, it is definitely a part of it. We want to find ways to bring the Paisley Park experience and some of the artistry to the rest of the world.
Do you have any idea at this point, COVID permitting, when tour tickets will open up beyond the end of May?
I believe they're available now. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they're available now. We have a lot of things planned for the summer. So what I would say is, they should be available now. And if they're not, they'll be available very soon. I'd say keep watching. We've got some pretty big things coming.
Okay, here's one really from the archives.
Okay.
Does Paisley have any plans to show Prince's silent movie with Rita Moreno? And will Paisley offer a FAM course of study regarding Prince's love of bygone era movies?
That is a very specific question. Here's the best way that I can answer it. One of the things that we started to do starting in 2019 onward, before COVID, is that all of us who are big fans of Prince and have followed him, he loved movies. He loved film, and his love for Finding Nemo, his love for kind of old classics. So we started a year ago creating this Paisley Park film series, this kind of cinema series. Our first approach was to show films that they weren't literally Prince. I mean, it wasn't Purple Rain, but instead we wanted to show films that either we felt influenced Prince, or that the artists in the film were influenced by him, or was it just a film that he would say, as he did, hey, why don't you come over and watch this great movie? So we ended up launching music on the big screen last year, and we showed Watt Stack's Amazing Grace and Dave Chappelle's Block Party. The point is that we do see cinema and things that are authentic to Prince as being part of that. So we'll start to see that roll out. I could imagine a Finding Nemo, screening. I could imagine old classic films that we know he loved. I could, so as to those specifics, I'd say keep following us, and you'll see. But yes, I think that was part of him, and it's also, frankly, part of what we do. What I haven't said yet is that we have this massive screen with Prince's sound system. It is a great place to watch pictures. I mean, it is phenomenal. So, so to the extent that there are those which we've been approached about, maybe you didn't shoot your feature at Paisley, but we'd be happy to work with you and have it screened there, have it open there. You know, there's a certain kind of level of excitement, and it's just a very dynamic and exciting place. And so we would love to also just screen films there. So please do reach out to us about that as well.
We have a lull in the questions for the moment.
Well, then
No.
I'm gonna give Alan a break. I'm gonna, excuse me, turn to Christine for a moment, and just ask this, my own curiosity. What can you recall some of the productions that you oversaw when you were there? Like, what was kind of the scope, the biggest production? I mean, did you work, was there a feature film, or was it all commercials?
It was mostly all commercials, some photo shoots, some music videos, which Prince gave special permission to film in Studio A. I took out all the princely stuff and I covered up over Paisley Park, so it'd be more, but Studio, it's beautiful. I mean, it's just beautiful. So he pretty much said during my time, I could do whatever I wanted on the soundstage side. Recording studios was kind of his side, but if he wasn't in the house, he was open to suggestions. So he let us do that. That was great. A lot of commercials, Famous Dave's, Breyer's Ice Cream, Best Buy. We did one with NASCAR. We did one for a really cool one with Best Buy for a cheerleader. It was back, you know, when you play in the movie theater to shut off your cell phone. You know, when your cell phone goes off, it ruins the moment. And they tossed a cheerleader and the guy dropped her because the cell phone went off. That was an all-nighter. We had to stay and paint all night long. And yeah, that was a good one. So a lot of mostly commercial work, but I will say back to what Alan, somebody had asked the question to Alan about the lower budget or the, you know, because we did commercials. It was mostly productions from Minneapolis, but we did do, I remember some people coming from Chicago and they didn't realize Paisley was Prince's place. And I remember I walked out and this guy's like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe where I'm at. You know, and it's production and he was still just super thrilled about it. But it was mostly local production people that, you know, a lot of them were on this call that we know. But I also, one of the very first projects that we almost did was a feature film. It was a low independent one, did not have a lot of budget. We worked with him. They were going to build sets because they just could not find a house because this is a period piece that fit the bill. But they ended up at the last minute going to Montevideo and finding a house. But I worked with Prince, you know, in those kind of cases, I would work with him. I pretty much I did my thing, but there were certain times that I would ask him like, hey, you know, they don't have a lot of budget. This is what they're hoping to do. And he greenlit that. So I'm glad to hear Alan say, you know, it's a case by case, you know, sometimes people, you know, if it's a Best Buy thing, they might have some money. And if it's an independent thing, you know, a documentary that they're trying to shoot or, you know, an independent film, an indie film, you know, we all know the budget's not quite there. So, but yeah, we did a couple of Prince videos. Imagine that. We filmed Cinnamon Girl, the video Cinnamon Girl right on the soundstage. Harder Fuller shot that when the Harder Fuller was around. Yeah. And we did some other ones of his in the studio when he was there in the studio. So, and then like I mentioned, the Gatorade commercials, you know, so yeah, a lot of really great fun stuff.
Yeah, Cinnamon Girl, Phil Harder's video. Phil recently directed a feature film called Tuscaloosa, came out in 2019, that was shot entirely in Minnesota, even though it was set in Alabama. So look for that. Jill, do we have any more questions that have come in the last couple of minutes?
Yes, Christine, what's your funniest Prince story?
I don't know if it's funny, but I do remember, well, I have two funny stories. That one that I just mentioned where for the cheerleader, and like I said, we shot all night. So they were prepping all day long, pre-lighting, setting the stage up. And of course, the painter is always the last person to get in, So we had to paint, not me, but I oversaw the soundstage. So I was always there for the filming. I would, open up there to the very last person left. And so I was there all night long. And by the time they painted, that crew was going to leave. There was like 4 hours by the time the stage had to be back open for the production to come in, and they had fans going and all that to paint in time. So I just spent the night there, and I stayed. There's like a little mezzanine upstairs. It was that was the green room was upstairs with all the mirrors, and there was 2 recliners. And I was sleeping on one of the recliners, and and it's all dark, and I hear footsteps. And I'm like, oh no, here comes Prince. And I'm like, and this is in the backstage area there. So I was sound asleep up there, and I could hear it. And because I didn't want to scare him, and I didn't tell him I was going to spend the night. But he never turned on the light, so he never knew I was crashed out on a recliner up there. So that was just one fun story. Another fun story was that he came home. And of course, he knew I was renting because I let him know and, told him everything. But he came in and he looked in the soundstage, and, there was Bill. I think it might have been the Famous Dave's one. He's like, what's all this going on? And I'm like, well, it's a production. He's like, well, when are they leaving? And I was like, Thursday, but I got another one loading in, right after. So it was like, you never knew with Prince. It was kind of like a question of like, what's going on? Well, I'm doing my job. And then, well, what's coming next? He just always, it was a different way of, approach. And also because he would be thinking of like, well, if he needed to get in there. So, that does remind me, I have one more funny one. The cyc wall, it's a curved cyc wall in there, and it's huge. Cyc wall being where you could film green screen, which we would do quite a bit. But I used to keep it green. But we would film it, you would paint it white sometimes, if you wanted to have that. And we got a call when he was on the plane coming home from his photographer who said, hey, he just showed me this magazine of a guy standing in front of this white wall with his guitar, and it was the silhouette. What color is that cyc wall? And I said, it's green. He's like, how quick can you get it white? So the other guy that like kind of did all of the equipment and stuff like that, he and I stayed and painted the wall white, and Prince walked in. He's like, wow, they got it done. And then he never shot in front of it for that. That's Prince. You just never knew.
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually heard stories like that where they would spend all night loading in a set. He was recreating a jail for videos, like a jail house thing. And then the next day he said, nah, I don't like it. And they just took it down.
Yeah.
I've also heard this story a lot about, because I would ask, all these artists want to like, if you've not been there yet, you really do have to hear it. But like the live room in A is just unbelievable. And we had all these artists in there, but then he would come home and he'd go like, well, why are they there? Because he would want to use it. So, so I've heard a lot about that. I mean, what I can say to people is, because I know we're going to wrap up soon. Please do reach out to us, because it's important for all of us. This is part of Prince's legacy. And so, in particular for those who are in our community, we can never have enough meetings. We just want you to see it. We want to see if there's a way that we can make it happen. And if there's not, it'll be the next project. But I think all of us, are really committed to really ramping up production in the entire state. And I should say too, Melody, that's great news about the, crew listings. I think that's going to be huge. So, don't be not intimidated, but don't be put off because it's 12,500 square feet and it's a big building. we can do small and big. So I really do encourage people to reach out.
Well, thank you, Alan. And just know that once we do get the tax credit incentive passed, I'm going to continue harassing and stalking Ava DuVernay and Array and get her out here to do a project, and certainly send her to Paisley Park. But everyone, please do look for information later this afternoon on Array Crew, or just go to arraycrew.com. Minnesotans can now sign up, so I'm very excited about that. And look for information on legislative action next week. Go to our website. You can find information on advocacy that you can take now, and also SAG-AFTRA and IATSE, the other labor community, is doing great work on advocating for all of us to get back to work when it's safe. So I want to thank you. It's 1 o'clock. Our timing was perfect. Thank you all for coming, and thank you to our panelists. This was a great conversation.
Thank you, Christine.
My pleasure. It was so
Phil.
fun. Thank you. Thank you, Film and TV Board. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you in Chanhassen.
All right. Yes, soon, please. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye.